It's Saturday. It's May 6th, 2023. Um, on the television, on the CBS this morning, they're mentioning that um, King Charles III is being coronated and crowned. I went this morning, I DVR'd it so I could watch the historical context. Um, and see what I can learn, whatever they're allowing to communicate with this area. Um, I went for my first 5K run with the New York City Road Runners today. Um, as far as medical update, it's interesting because I go at my own pace at this point. I know that my health has been altered. I don't know why the medical arts department and the medical director department and what I need is not being, even with insurance, is not helping me. I can see chemically on my hat. This is just the changes, like just in like a coronal suture line or a parietal suture line, like parietals, temporal. I mean, at a cerebrum level, to be secreting something that causes a hat to change, and it has the white changes for like the salts that are coming out, but for this level of chemical change, and it's just on the outside, it's not on the interior of the hat. So it's whatever is coming through the hat and then hitting the atmosphere at this sunlight. It's the chemical exchange along with some of the other things that I've been reporting. Like, I don't have yellowing in the upper extremities, but the lower extremities, there seems to be a little bit more yellowing of the interstitial fluid, along with trouble, um, at times with walking and with muscle movement. Um, so it's interfering with my CNS, my ANS at this point, it feels like. But I'm trying to steady as best that I can. My memory keeps coming, like I just feel foggy at times. Like I pull it through, but I can see these chemical changes. I'm not on any medication, not anything. It's just water, diet, and whatever is in the local area. But it's at this level of lifestyle, just normal living. And this is what's happening just from regular use. Um, so gauging myself against the herd, which is something I don't normally do. I don't like to compare myself to others, but in a public health context and knowing where your benchmark is. I went running today. Now, the being able to complete the run, not the problem. I ran there. I finished the 5K while I was there. I began and ended a full 5K at the New York City Roadrunner, but I ran to the facility and then I ran home from the run. Um, so while I was there, it was not an inability to complete it, but I could see very really in a HERD setting of others, they took off at a pace like I used to be able to run. And I can tell, like I can feel the fact that my muscles are not working the way that they should. I'm not walking the way that I should. I'm at times slightly off balance, but I try to hold my own. I've been trying to counterbalance that with physical therapy. I've increased water to try to purify and get rid of the toxins best that I can. Um, and I've been going to all of the specialists and the primary care without any assistance whatsoever to help me correct what I have going on. I mean, not even direction. I mean, they have an MD, but there's no direction in correcting myself back to homeostasis. It is an incredibly frustrating society and system to be stuck in or trapped in, not knowing why they bothered to go to medical school if they're not really, I mean, they took an oath to do no harm, but yet by quietly quitting on me and not giving me medical advice when I am actively seeking it out, I mean, that has to be a crime against my person. I just don't know what, because again, not my forte. Um, anyhow, so there's that. So that's in like a medical arts of biochemistry and what's going on. I'm not purposely taking anything. There's no pharmaceuticals I'm taking. There's no any of that. But yet I'm having these very real chemical changes along with other things that I've been noting. So I noticed my pace. I completed it, but in order to, they completed the 5K in much faster than I was able to. My stride, I feel lacking in strength, and my stride um, is a little is altered, and I know it. I feel it. I just don't know how to counteract whatever's going on. I don't know if it's a virus, if it's a bacterium, if, I mean, it might be part fungal. I have no idea what's environmentally going on. And the medical arts department, for which they call healthcare, that I go to seek out their advice in Western medicine, are not really, I mean, they're not helping me correct. And I've been documenting my journey of just how altered my physical abilities and capabilities are, and just how like terrible the interaction is with their just, I mean, even after seeing so many, I mean, they're running diagnostic after diagnostic, but I'm not getting any benefit out of it. And I don't know, like, where is the magic in their system where you find one of them that all of a sudden's like, oh, this is what it could be, or this is how we're going to correct this. I know exactly what it is. Like, that's my thing. Difference between like the infirmary doctors or the infant doctors and like the ship doctors. I mean, I see Thor. I see that there's really smart medical directors out there, but at this level, they're not bringing their A game when I'm trying to interact and find homeostasis and health and like interact with them in a respectful, very respectful manner. But the New Yorkers are not bringing their respectful game in. You all prepped for this. Where is this partnership in healthcare so you don't get jammed up in malpractice? I mean, like, I don't get it. Um, so there's that going on locally. I noticed that I don't even want to say Father Eric because that gets confusing, but like in a White House way, if it's AM Eric A, like again, he's the one who's seated in that position at the moment. I saw that he was not invited to the coronation. I did see that the theoretics of Eric having a mother, she was invited to the coronation. Don't know what that was about, but obviously it's a signal of something. Um, so I'm keeping an eye on that as well, um, especially while I'm having trouble here in New York with health and interacting. with the locals. I mean, I've never gotten a fight with a doctor. I've never been disrespectful to a doctor. I always actively seek out their advice, and I try to give and speak their language best I can in order to interact with them in higher levels. So this way but it has not been working to my benefit. So there's that. Then I'm watching this Thor movie, this Dark World. It's a conversation. It's a conversation I'm part of. Um, the last time, there's a very real scene that happens. The last time that this particular event happened, which I don't have anybody to report it to, I don't even know who takes this level of whatever. But the last time this happened to me was right around, it was almost like, I mean, I call it the day that the world stood still, but it's like almost like if you could have, if there's such a thing as like a matrix program that functions in a very specific way, and then somebody wanted to install a different matrix program, and it's like everybody went to sleep and they woke up and they didn't know they were in this altered program, but there's time spent in between. I feel like that's what happened, getting pulled through this dimension and then having these, I mean, like, it sounds crazy to say it, but I mean, I know I was there. I know there's key up words like Solar City, and the beings from whoever they were, um, and all sorts of things. There was at one point, I mean, like, it very really looks like this scene where she's all alone and then she gets pulled through. She doesn't know why, and she's there all alone. She's on the edge. I didn't have an on the edge experience. It was just black, but I was still in my ability, my physical self. And then Father of Nature, that's how he introduced himself. I later called him something else. And then we had where there was like visual background where you could say, like, you could define that you're in a room and so on and so forth. But at first it was just in blackness and it was just the physicality. And that's where it was him and what I refer to as the weatherman, who looks very much like one of the seals from the Rock movie that Ed Harris is in. Um, Again, my Ed looks just like that Ed in Family Relations, who's my godfather. Um, so, and I'm having problems in New York City with some kind of chemical exchange going on. I don't really know what it's related to or who's involved, like in that level of management, which is what's really frightening. But right before Trump got elected, there was some kind of weird aerial phenomenon that went on, and this is what it looked like from my end. I mean, I don't have a machine that looks like this. I'm sure in this conversation, for which Marvel Studios and Disney is holding that I mean, again, if it's a conversation, if that's what a movie is, they're holding that conversation for some purpose. I'm not quite sure what. I know it happened to me. I just don't know what's involved with it. Again, I'm just here 1 minute and then I'm somewhere else another minute. And I know what happened on the other side. I know what happened here. And I see it coming out in a conversation in like they make millions of dollars off of this conversation. Meanwhile, I'm suffering and struggling here. And I don't like, I mean, they're making mention of it and giving me a visual reality of it. So I know I'm not crazy, which, and they're acknowledging at some level that it exists and it's happened. They're not necessarily saying who. I mean, they've put cover names on it. Um, but again, there's something called copycat, which I guess this Thor movie could technically, in a conversation that I don't really want to have with just anybody, could be considered a copycat of real world events. Why is it a nickname? Why is it Nick? I'm Nicole. I'm in a Nicholas's cage at the moment. Um, and again, there's another scene in this movie which looks like very like dark magic, but I understand like if you're tasked, I had to think about this morning to like really walk the steps of somebody else if I had to defend their actions carefully as it pertains to my own story, knowing that I've been pulled through one of these scenes into words that normal humans can't connect with. And then there being a very real, like witchcraft stories of frightening things where they burn them and all sorts of things. And then the church, and I, like, again, where do you run and duck for cover? I mean, I didn't ask for this. I don't know who was involved in it. Like, there's things that go on, like, outside of the scope of normal humanity. And, like, I don't know who handles those relations. So I'm just trying to put realm work into some kind of context for my own, since I've never even heard of realm. And then I have to, like, I'm the real world, REAL. I see on the REEL being the movie world, they're having this conversation. And then there's something called a realm, REALM, that's never really been clearly defined for me. And here, thank God, like Chris Hemsworth in the Marvel studio, and then Tom and the riddle and his riddle, and um, again I've got Brady Bunch Tom with cosmic like timing, and then there's this Tom Riddle in the Marvel side of things. One's an NFL sports guy, one's in the movie district or whatever. Um, in my area that uses a White House to protect the children, or so I thought, from whatever might be threatening us from far, far and away. I thought that's how the father of a nation works. But again, they're coronating someone who's further away. I'm going to the Red Cross tomorrow. Every Sunday I go to the Red Cross. So this way, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't watch horror movies, but again, I know the kids, some kids are into them. Um, so there's this. So I'm just going to put on what they put on. But then there's a second scene where I was thinking, as a storyteller and as a visual artist, if you really don't know and somebody just gives you, and then I see, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'm like, one of the big villains in the world in my news department happens to be Putin. And I'm like, and he's like one of the big bullies out in the world, supposedly, theoretically, according to the storyboard that goes on here. Um, so there's something about, uh, they put this scientist in underwear, and I'm like, oh my God, is that to categorize like the briefing room? But like I don't need like blue angels and red arrows. Like really, I mean, like, is that how they disrespect each other in movie land? Like I'm a child of God, of God. I don't want to be hurt because someone else misinterprets what a blue angel put out there as a signal to a red arrow or some other paradigm shift. as a communication of like, no, that's one of my kids. I mean, like, again, I saw in Nicolas's Cage, The Rock, for some reason, they used a beige Volvo. I'm just like, oh God, Father Eric, oh my gosh, what is that going to look like to the children of elsewhere? And then they put the scientist in, like, in briefs running around, but he's like the physics guy, and I'm like, why is he wearing briefs? I mean, I get the comedy of it, but I'm also like, oh no, there's bullies out there. So I don't want to get bullied on the playground. I'm already having medical issues with the medical arts department. I don't know who's involved, but it's very serious. Um, and then there's this, and I want to make my father proud. I don't want to disrespect him, but these medical changes and these chemical, I mean, again, it's hard to be real and honest and go through these things and input this raw data and then be taken seriously and not be harmed by reputation or other for looking like I'm in some weakened state and it's like more attacks. So I'm really careful with all of that swimming around in possibilities in how humans behave. I've seen enough of it on the television. So, um, through the mirror and portal system. But um, I I noticed in Thor's movie, they put him in a red Volvo, which, again, in a conversation in whatever and whatever, whatever, I am appreciative that he got in a red Volvo and not Nicolas's Cage's beige Volvo. I mean, again, it seems really important for not everybody. I mean, the only cross I can find around these parts is a red cross, but I know somewhere in realm work they have a white, a blue, and I'm really frightened by my local area that this frost giant or this guy Frio, Uncle Frio or Tio Frio, has this black cross on his hand. I mean, like, how did that end up? Like, why was I blacksmithed into that in reality, Father Eric? I mean, seriously, I'm supposed to be like, I mean, just I wanted like one happily ever after and to make somebody a very proud father. I really did not want a crazy donkey story or any of this other stuff that's gone on in shenanigans. It's not fair to me, it's not fair to my reputation, and it's just as a human, it's horrendous. It's a horrendous way to treat a human being. Anyhow, so there's this second scene where they raise and levitate this theory of Jane, and like this dark matter comes out of her eyes. Again, it's like, how do you explain their, like, if your body's a machine and there's a greater machine and there's some connection between the world you can see but you're not a part of but you move through. I mean, these are very abstract concepts in artistry and verbal skills, for which I get. And then you've got your human self, and then there's this bridge between how do you interact with that, and something in there magically holds us up and allows us to move. Um, so I get that there's this levitation thing and this dark matter coming out of her eyes, but then it goes back into her eyes and it actually shows, if you study the eye in medical arts, which I have, it shows where the pupil is and then the retina, in the retina's really like brightly lit in the back, and then it almost like shows the depiction into the cosmos, but it, if you know brain or medical arts science, it also could signal what it may look like, since we don't really know living in our human self unless whatever. but there's pictures of it in medical journals and medical studies, going through the pupil into the retina, down to the optic nerve, into the cerebral cortex, and how it interacts with the gray and the white matter. So there's that. But then that connection with how are dendrites lit and how do they interact in a playful manner that give us thought and help us whatever. So there's that, and then into the outer world and how it connects. So I see from my point of view in a God kind of a way, how does the God interact with the body mechanic or the larger whatever? If God is not something as a body outside, I mean, again, the linguistics on this are really conversation specific, but in how do you construct a reality? Um, so I am I see how they show this levitation, and somebody in Disney or Marvel Studios was tasked with having to come up with this visual arts as the light hits the eyes and going into the brain and the eye and then coming back out, and how's the dark matter interact with us in this, like, I mean, again, they say that that's like this is the real world, and then that's the surreal world that surrounds us. I've heard they say the spiritual world, but is the spirit on the inside? The outside? Again, like it's conjecture. It depends on who the conversation with is, and I don't get in arguments with that level of scientist because they have their favorites, and like the linguistics for me, if I invert it for one moment, I don't there's been no standard operating language, um, which is SOL. There's been like whatever, shit out of luck is what it feels like. So this is how she notices this weirdness going on.
The car keys?
Oh, and I also noticed in the Thor movie, because like it's happened to me more than once that I get pulled into these things, but like really the last time where there was like this real conversation about this world of hurt that I was going to enter in the next stage or phase of my life, trying to avoid that completely, looking at the star, moon, and like the sun, the stars, and the moon contract and evaluating that. Why was I with Tia Freo? I mean, Father of Nature was calling. That's where I've wanted to be. I don't care. He's got a KIM, a wife, Kim, and two daughters. Like, again, Father Eric, what's going on? I mean, like, I see Mother Eric got to go away today and someone was grounded at home. I mean, there is a God on my area. There's a KIM somewhere else. And then I've heard there's a DIO. Again, they all seem to translate out to this whatever, but um, in like a tribunal, if whatever. I mean, I know that he said that he at one time he said that, but we were alone. When we were with the weatherman, it was just Father of Nature. He was Father of Time. I was Mother of Nature, and we were with the weatherman. That's it. Weatherman, for me, looked like he was the the guy with the mustache from the Rock movie. I think that at one point he says, or he looks like he's with the FBI. He's the one who flipped the quarter onto the table in the Nicolas Cage. But again, they're driving a beige Volvo, so like I'm like, there's some problems at Nicolas Cage because I'm pretty sure Thor's got red Volvo elsewhere. So that's really important at some conversation that like I don't even know how to have in like a real world kind of a way. But I see that they're making light of it, or they're pronouncing or acknowledging that it happened. I was in Patchogue when this happened in 2000, I guess it was 14 or 15, however that works. Um, Maybe it was 2016. I don't know. It was right before I lost the house and before I met Felix, or Felix got assigned to me in Port Jeff, between Ronkonkoma and Port Jeff. I was in Patchogue at that point. He knows who he is because he's not even familial, but he might have been sent by familial. I don't really know. Um, and he mentioned he works for Secret Service. So I'm like, all right, again, I got issues with a crazy donkey and blacksmith, but here we are. So this looks very much like what was going on when I was in the carriage house. Um, I don't know where I exited the carriage house. I got in a vehicle with somebody. There was something else going on in Ben's room. I was there for that. Again, that goes back to Harry Potter and the twisting of time and how can I be in two places at once. One of the men took one of my round Mini Cooper keys. I guess that was for his own whatever. Um, and um, I was also right around the time that DeCipio and some of Tiafrio's other friends were going to some bachelor party in Vegas. Um, but whatever on that. So this happened. And then after this, I got into some kind of conversation, but not of this world, of some other world, talking about the going through. But when I woke up and back in regular world of like headed to world of hurt where I met Felix and all this other stuff went on, after that, it was like my parents didn't, something was weird going on with my parents, something was weird going on with Tia Frio. I had no idea what it was all about. Nobody was talking about it. Um, but I just entered world of hurt, and just that's where I'm at this point, and I don't know how to get out of this. But this is what it looked like from my end, is just walking out and getting in the car. He drove the car to someplace in Sachem to go meet Eric. I walked into the house and it was like walking over a threshold into the arms of the person that you love. I never wanted to come back. Just like that, I disappeared. And then it also happened, that exact kind of thing happened, where, because it just kind of washes over you, and then all of a sudden it's like the world that you thought you were headed for visually, it just washes over you, and then you're in blackness. And that's where I met Father of Time. Um, I don't know why I can only seem to find him in realm work, like outside of where I wake up in New York every day, or he finds me. I mean, again, I don't know how I get pulled through or pulled into that, but whatever. And it happened. Also, I noticed that they made mention in this Thor Dark World movie. Um, I had a meeting once. I've talked about it before. Lions came. Um, I've never seen him before. He only stayed like a couple of classes, and when I returned back to Cold Spring Harbor High School, he was the one who couldn't fit in the desk. And then he told me he wanted me to meet somebody really important. He told me I was beautiful, which I was like, wait, what? I was like, nobody says that ever. Um, and so he invited me to this meeting, which I went to. It was an evening meeting, which was odd, especially being a teenager, but I went. Um, and that's where I met someone who said that he was in charge of the painting. Um, and there was somebody else that he said, I think he said he was from Poland. I don't remember. And I couldn't tell the difference, honestly. But he was seated at the bar. He drank. I did not. Um, and then I went outside that building, and I was in Huntington, and I was only a teenager. And then something happened in the brick courtyard. It was almost like that, like this happened, where it washed over. And the scene in my memory that I'm left with is I don't know who I met. That was one of the only people I've ever met that said that they were Kingsman. Um, and he said he was talking names, but nothing was really like nothing, like they weren't talking about it in my day life. So it was interesting to me, but I was left with this red background, which they've also shown here in some of the realm work. Um, and then the memory itself is covered in red in the background and then a black for whatever reason. That's how it's recalled. Um, but that night, and then that's where I went to work the next day, working in one of the local retail stores. And although it was named Genevieve's, which that was like a drug family, so and they called it a drug store, but it was a retail, like where you buy shampoo and soap and whatever. So it was respectable work. So I was working there, and the only person I ever knew named with a Don, Don, for the DIOS crew, he came the next day to question me on that meeting. He asked me some words I didn't know or I had never learned. And then he said, no, his father needed accurate records for whatever, because he was in charge of looking over us. But they sent a Don, a DON, happened to be a Saladino, but I see Saladino is an executive somewhere in Nassau County by the Oyster Bay, where I went to St. Dominic's. So also a donkey in according to New York Airwaves, but whatever on that. So that's how that all ties in together. But this very really happened. I just didn't have a machine like this to know how to record it. I'm going to go to where the other picture is, a little further on in the movie, where they levitate her and they do this cosmic thing, because like in poetry, to speak to a woman and say, like, you have like the stars in your eyes, like, I mean there are men, I don't know who, I haven't really spent time around anything interesting or like artsy, um that speak that way, and it would have been really fun to have studied alongside that level of artist, but it didn't happen. So along those lines of storytelling, like if somebody was questioning you within an inch of your life of like, did this really happen? Show me proof. And what does it look like? There it is. They completed whatever was whatever. Um, and so again, technology has swept over. The aether is here. The ether is here. And technology has just swept over these lands where it's so easy to explain things that in more ancient times, depending on how land management was, would have been easier to lock somebody in an asylum for the rest of their lives. Now, because of the way the laws are, because the way society has developed itself, there's laws protecting speech through the Father Eric at the moment. Is President Joe Biden. He said Jimmy Madison, so James Madison on that one. Um, Even though they're mad sons out there, there really is protection of the innocent and of the it happened. Why do I feel like I've been punished this entire time? This scene is really helpful, I think, because from this level of like top of the world, um, and just in the heart of a conversation where my anchor is I was born of this place. There was a flower before me that there's a star before me that birthed me here. And then I have a symmetrical star in a linear format, um, that brings anatomy and placement to space and time in a symmetrical way that anchors along with others like myself, other things. But again, I have an RH sensitivity, and it seems like there's some feudal land wars going on. And again, they refer to themselves here as slaves. When I go elsewhere, they call themselves serfs or serfdom. It's neither here nor there for me. There's conversations about whatever and whatever at higher levels. I know it exists. I mean, whether the herd, HERD, wants to call themselves that or not, how other people speak about them or the decision makers speak about them when they're in private or in boardrooms, you know, who knows? Who knows how they speak of us? I don't know.
You're late. Merriment can sometimes be a heavier burden than battle. And you're doing one of them incorrectly. Perhaps. How fair the stars. Still shining. From here, I can see 9 realms of 10 trillion souls. Do you recall what I taught you of the convergence? Yes. The alignment of the worlds. It approaches, doesn't it? The universe hasn't seen this marvel since before my watch began. Few can sense it, even fewer can see it. While its effects can be dangerous, it is truly beautiful. I see nothing. Or perhaps that is not the beauty you seek.
Jane Foster, you need to come with us.
We are still unable to restore the palace shields. Our artillery cannot detect them. Even Heimdall cannot see them. My king, we are all but defenseless.
She's your prisoner now? Leave us.
Now, I'm just gonna chalk hill this one up that it's a red Volvo. I'm gonna say that's an inside private joke between I don't know what, but I get it and I see it between the movie The Rock in 1996 and this, whatever this is, coming out in 2013. Again, the planet Saturn.
So who's Richard?
Really? This is pretty funny because they put Eric in briefs, and he's like the scientist. And I'm like, wait, is that supposed to reference the Polish guy? Because again, if there's like a war room or a briefing room, like, is that going to anger him at like, I don't know what they call their GOD. I don't even know if they're using alien symbols at technology. I mean, I know what it looks like here in these lands, but like, I mean, it is land. I don't want to upset has other whatever somewhere. And then I'm gonna show a piece where they do like, to me, the battlefield, like where does it look like Thor goes through a battle? And I'm like, is that what like the world newsroom looks like daily? I mean, like, if I had to guess, that's what I would imagine. I mean, they might be on phones, but it might feel when they get home at night like they're on that kind of a scene. Like, again, I don't know for sure, but if I had to just, you know, empathize with a possibility, it would make sense logically.
Freddie, did you go to a party? Eric?
Jane! Wonderful.
Not lost on me that she's wearing silver and blue, by the way. Um, just for an M3 and a Audi. Had rings.
Oh, you've been to Oscar.
Where are your pants?
Oh, he says it helps him think.
Okay, well, I'm gonna need everything you got on this. All the work you've been doing on gravimetric anomalies, everything.
Okay.
Very well, Eric.
Your brother's not coming, is he?
Look, he is dead.
Oh, thank God. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Now, this is interesting. I did not know that they had a Greenwich in London. What I do know is they have a Greenwich in Connecticut. There's some Greenwich Village in New York. And I know that there was some kind of funding issue that happened for my father that changed the course of something with Douglas Bremen, DB, in our lives that altered other things. And I don't know what devastating effects or how that rocked like through. Um, no idea. But I'm watching this and they're pinpointing there's a Greenwich in London. So
Malekith is going to fire the ether at a spot where all the 9 worlds are connecting.
Amplifying the weapon's impact. For each additional world, the power will increase exponentially. The effect would be universal.
Yes, but the alignment is only temporary. He must be in exactly the right place at the right time.
Well, how do we know where that is?
We follow the directions.
This has happened before, thousands of years ago. The ancients were there to see it. All the great constructions. The Mayans, the Chinese, the Egyptians, they made use of the gravitational effects of the convergence. And they left us a map. Stonehenge. Snowden. Great Orm. These are all coordinates taking us.
these are headline names in my newsroom. Something went on with a Snowden and some documents. I don't know what that was really about, but I hear it mentioned here, and it ties back to this Greenwich. I know my father had a problem with getting the backing or the support of the people in Connecticut at some point in my life. That this one particular office redlined him or put him like in the red. It was so hard to carry that office without their local support. And then other things happened. But they didn't really rally around my dad and give my dad the support that he needed, recommending good brokers good stockbrokers, good financial, like, books of business to be housed in the Douglas Bremen brokerage office. So the support for some reason was lacking in Greenwich, which I don't know why. Um, I don't know what the tumult was over. Again, key up word there in specific communities of what was surrounding him at the time.
Here. Greenwich.
The walls between worlds will be almost non-existent. Physics is going to go ballistic. Increases and decreases in gravity, spatial extrusions. The very fabric of reality is going to be torn apart.
I better get my pants.
You know who made.
And it's like, again, at the world newsroom, wherever these battles are, where like everybody wants to just make their father proud, and get whatever and whatever attention. Um, that's kind of what, like, I didn't get one of those positions in real world, but it looks like this is, um, that's what this reminds me of in the scene that he's in.
I've got this completely under control.
Is that why everything's on fire?
Looks like an exciting career to be in the world newsroom. But again, I don't really know how their storytellers and their theater groups, and then I think they have something called a study group, or like, I don't know, peer groups. Again, I've heard these things through a hole in space and time, but I was never offered any of these positions to become a part of um, anything like human related. The human relations around these parts have not been kind or gracious or generous as far as like interactive services. It's like I get a fly by night, and then, I mean, crazy donkeys and um, black crosses with a blacksmith, some Lindenhurst lathe. I mean, like, again, um, there was some Thompson somewhere in there. He was in some field of bulbtronics, BULB. But that goes to lighting issues and like some money making schematic um, that then led to LEDs. I know he used to be able to travel a lot. Um, I don't know how these people get these jobs. I don't. It's not as easy for me, even applying online. It just like goes into the ether, and it's just like, it's just ignored.
You're welcome.
But I have to imagine, like, I really feel like the president of the United States wakes up every morning and, like, looks like this, ready to go to protect his children of the United States of America from whatever evil is out in the world. Like, that growing up was how I thought of Ronald Reagan and the president. Like, he keeps the children safe, like, for the future with them in mind. I really don't know how far off my reality is from, but that's like the sense that we got and the importance of his position. Um, and I'm not comfortable letting that go. I'm not. Um, Star 1978, Star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxies, Broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York. I'm gonna go through this one more time before I close this out to try and find that scene with her with the eyes. I went through it, I couldn't find it, but I'll look for it again. I finally found it. This is the scene right here, where he pulls the dark matter out of her eyes, and then it goes to this visual arts interpretation, and then it goes to the planetary view, and then it looks at the pupil and the retina, and then the dark matter goes back in. But again, it's like, how does your body take in this, what they refer to as dark matter, but they make it very like ominous and very like dark magic almost, which I've heard of is like the unspoken, but they've put it into visual reality, which I hear it like noetic sciences, and Scientology and that kind of thing. They believe in the words and other things. Like, it's not necessarily sinister, but I mean, I understand how people could interpret it as such. But again, there is this connectedness between this world and what's broken in this world at the moment. I mean, there's the biochemical battlefield that I'm like currently trapped in with no way to get to anybody of like authority, or I don't really know because I don't speak of the biochemical battlefield that you walk into every day. And then there's this third dimensional way of explaining it, which is just a higher order process, which I've also been a part of. And I see that they're mentioning it here. And so it goes from lights and world, but again, I don't know if this is a conversation piece for someone. That for me goes to the pupil and into the retina at this particular level of light. This is my concern. I can see, again, it really looks like, and I've seen this in medical books, and how it's the vascular structure of the retina and in relation to the pupil, when they light it up at the eye care specialist. And then showing like, how do you interpret or explain the dark matter going from the planet into your eyes. I mean, again, I see the beauty in what they've done, although it might scare the heck out of someone else. I'm gonna go to the other movie. I think the other movie is where they have this phenomenon that they can't explain, but it comes down in tunnel format. They have this grid on there that then just moves, and that's more at like a CGI level of computing or technology, or so the humans have spoken about on things like 60 Minutes. Not that I know any of them in the walkabouts. Um, Most of the stuff I've learned from the television, I suppose, more from the television at this point. But then I've actually been able to find out when the human connection. Not that I haven't tried. It's just they show up and like they're just small talk everywhere I go for whatever reason. Um, but the grid looks like the interaction with the grid again when it goes to metabolite and electrolyte, and then um, cellular generation and the health paradigm shift that is experienced at the moment here. I know there's an interconnectedness. I relate on a video like this. I don't even really know how to or why I would need to go into such detail, but here we are. It's it's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza.